The house feels quieter these days. Daniel moved out months ago, but his laughter still lives in the corners of these rooms. When he told me he was bringing his fiancée to dinner, I spent hours preparing too many, maybe. I wanted her to see the woman who raised him, not the widow who hides her loneliness in recipes. As the sun set behind the olive hills, I set the table for 3, smoothing the napkins twice. That night felt like a beginning, though some beginnings, I've learned, are only disguises for endings. Daniel arrived with Clara, the kind of beauty that glows under candlelight. Her perfume reached the door before her smile did, sweet, practiced, confident. She kissed my cheek, and her coolness stung more than her words ever would. We sat, and Daniel filled the silence with stories from his new life. Clara nodded politely, barely touching her plate, her eyes always drifting toward him as if I were invisible. I told myself she was just nervous, foreign. Maybe that's why she spoke in French sometimes, softly, half laughing. I smiled, pretending not to understand. I hadn't spoken French since Paris, since before Daniel was born, but the language never truly leaves you. As wine glasses clinked, I began to sense her tone, playful at first, then sharp, coated in honey but meant to sting. Daniel didn't notice. Love makes men blind, in the gentlest ways. When she leaned toward him and whispered again, the words floated across the table like tiny knives. And I caught every single one. The room grew smaller with every bite I forced down. Clara's voice danced lightly, a melody of arrogance wrapped in charm. She spoke of old-fashioned mothers, of people too simple to understand. Her laughter shimmered, delicate and cruel. Daniel chuckled, unaware of the translation that sliced through me. I lifted my glass, letting the candlelight hide my trembling hand. They thought I was still smiling. Inside, each French word replayed in my mind, clear, cold, merciless. She mocked my cooking, my clothes, even my accent when I said her name. To her, I was a relic, a woman from another century. But relics, I thought, are what survive. I studied her reflection in the silverware. Perfect posture, perfect hair. A girl who had never known silence heavy enough to crush a heart. Daniel reached for her hand, and I saw how easily love can become blindness. So I laughed softly, politely, and spoke a single word back to her, in French. A word she didn't expect. Her face froze. For the first time that evening, she looked directly at me. And I let my smile hold her gaze calm, endless, knowing I didn't need to say more. Understanding was revenge enough. That night, I couldn't sleep. The house still smelled of roasted herbs and humiliation. I sat by the window, listening to the wind move through the olive trees. How strange, I thought, the ways people reveal themselves when they think you're deaf to their words. I remembered Paris, the narrow streets, the cafes where I learned that language, the man who once whispered it into my ear, that same language now used to belittle me in my own home. Life, it seems, circles back with cruel precision. I could have told Daniel. I could have shouted, exposed her right there. But what would that change? Instead, I wrote her name on a napkin, folded it neatly, and set it beside the untouched wine glass she left behind. Let her wonder what I knew. Power isn't always in the voice. Sometimes it's in silence that breathes between words. By morning, I had already decided. I wouldn't warn her, I wouldn't beg for respect. She would reveal herself to him soon enough. People like Clara always do. And when she does, he'll remember that dinner, and he'll remember the look on my face when she spoke in French. The calm before the storm she didn't see coming. Days turned into weeks. Daniel called less often. I could tell something had shifted. Maybe she sensed I wasn't fooled. Maybe she feared what I might say. I didn't need to. Truth, I've learned, grows like ivy. It finds its way through cracks. One afternoon, Daniel showed up alone. His eyes were tired. You understood her, didn't you? he asked quietly. I didn't answer. I just poured him tea, the same way I did when he was a boy. He nodded, understanding my silence. The next day, he ended the engagement. Not out of anger, but clarity. Sometimes, the greatest revenge is letting truth speak for itself. I saw her once more, weeks later, at the market. Clara looked smaller somehow, her confidence stripped bare. She passed me without a word, though I could feel the sting of memory between us. I wished her peace. Even cruelty comes from fear. Daniel thanked me that evening, though I never told him why. Sometimes, Mama, he said, I think you see everything. I smiled. Not everything, I replied. Just enough. He'll never know how close he came to a lifetime of quiet disrespect. But that's what mothers do. We carry the truth silently, until it's safe to let it fall. The mountain winds carried the scent of rain that night, and I finally exhaled. Some lessons are whispered, others are earned in silence. If this story found you, if you've ever swallowed words you wanted to scream, remember this. Dignity is the quietest form of power, and silence, when chosen, speaks louder than rage. If you felt something tonight, if you saw a piece of yourself in my story, like, share, and subscribe for more stories that speak the truth behind quiet faces. There are more voices like mine, waiting in the shadows. Until next time, listen closely, because not every silence means surrender.